Good afternoon, class. Today we will be presenting the Beverage project. I'm Shavon Newkirk.
I'm Madison Clark.
I'm Dave Vasselli.
Ryan Lloyd.
And I'm John Rizzo.
Okay, so for our company, our mission statement is to educate communities on the decisions soft drink companies make and whether they are looking out for the well-being of the greatest amount of people. Some of our core values are to make a difference in the world, to look out for the well-being of people, to be passionate in what we do, and collaborate with one another to find the true colors of companies. So we created this ranking system, 1 being the most unethical, and number 5 being very ethical, and number 3 being neutral, but we don't have any sections of which are neutral.
Okay, so for utilitarianism, the principle is which holds that certain actions are right as they tend to promote the greatest happiness amongst population, as they tend to promote the opposite, wrong, as they tend to promote the reverse of happiness. Example, Hitler tried to promote happiness by killing the Jewish people and others make Germany happy, only except he did the opposite, and what creating chaos and ultimately destroying Germany. And it relates to the Rio Olympics because of the Brazilian government's goal is to promote the greatest happiness, or act utilitarian, to the people not only from Brazil but from all over the world.
Okay, so just a little bit of background in what was going on in Rio before the Olympics happened. So in 2008, there was actually an economic crisis that put Rio in one of the worst depressions ever. But what was different about them was that they wanted to rebound quickly, so they put in special social programs, hopefully to spread jobs throughout the community. In this chart that we have, it shows the GDP of Rio, or Brazil, and you can see that in 2008, 2009, it was actually on the negative, and that's because it decreased, because that's when they hit their recession. Going along with that, there was an oil scandal that included one of the largest oil companies nationwide, and what happened was that they were selling oil for more than it was, or more than it should have been sold for, and they were pocketing the extra money instead of distributing it where it should have been. A little more background, they rely on exports, so China is one of their main partners in business, both in the fact that they do business with them, and China does business for Rio. So when China's economy started to slow down, that means Rio's economy started to back off a little bit too. And throughout this whole economic climate, their focus was on damage control, because they knew how low they actually were and how in trouble they were. So they wanted to limit the damage and hopefully recover quickly.
Okay, so for one of the first things that we talked about was the pre-Olympic concerns in Rio. So will the athletes jump ship? Some of the athletes that were participating in the Olympics actually decided not to go because of the Zika virus that was going around Brazil. There's also robberies, so a gold medalist from Spain and 2 members of the country's sailing team were actually robbed at gunpoint and got their medals stolen. Police protests also happened too, and as you can see in that picture, it says, "Welcome to hell. Police and firefighters don't get paid. Whoever comes to Rio de Janeiro won't be safe." So the police and firefighters weren't being paid well, and they said that they won't protect tourists that come until the changes are made. So there was also rerouting of athletes when they actually got to Rio de Janeiro, because they didn't want to see they didn't want athletes to see the favelas and the poor living conditions of the people in Rio. And for our question was it utilitarian of Rio to host the 2016 Olympic Games based on the events leading up to the Games? So we decided that even though the living conditions were poor of Rio and they didn't want them to see the way that they lived, it was ethical of Rio to host the Olympics, because Through the eyes of utilitarianism, people all over the world love watching the Olympics no matter where they're hosted, and they love watching the people participate and the athletes that participate in the games. So it promoted the greatest amount of happiness to the largest amount of people.
Number 2, we talked about environmental factors. That goes along with many things that had to do with the environment in Brazil. One of them was pollution. It was polluted waters. It was a lot of waste disposal in the landfills. And when it rained, it carried on into the ocean. And that's what caused people to not be able to swim in the ocean, go fishing, or even boat in the ocean. And that's a major thing in Brazil. The Olympics had a media village, and this was a concern because they dug up old African American slaves or African slaves, and they just disregarded for the bodies and just built a media site, and that took away the cultural life of Brazil, and that was a very bad thing. Also, that earlier Madison talked about how the people that ran the Olympics detoured around the city instead of through the city. So the government spent $10.2 billion on a detour of the city to go around so people wouldn't see the harsh living conditions of Brazil. And they also reconstructed a golf course to help open activities for people in Brazil. And my group and we decided that Coca-Cola does not promote this as an ethical sense because their mission statement is to refresh the world, and this is the complete opposite.
Okay, so we also looked at the human rights of people of Rio during the Olympics, and when they were building the Olympics, families had to be displaced and removed from where they were living because of the building of new infrastructure for the Olympics. So we have here almost 4,200 families lost their homes, and another 2,500 were threatened for removal. But not all were removed for wrong reasons. So some of the people that were removed actually escaped things such as floods and landslides, and they were also removed for things such as transportation and other ways to get around the city that would benefit them further beyond the Olympics. But this wasn't the only case where we saw human rights were violated. Rio actually hosted the 2014 World Cup, and one of the officials had a quote that said, "Legal and constitutional procedures were swept aside repeatedly as event preparation was used as an excuse to coerce citizens." So basically they swept aside the human rights of the people of Rio just so they could put on events such as the World Cup and the Olympics. So the question we had was, were basic human rights abandoned when it came to hosting the 2016 Olympics? And we said kicking the families out in order to put on these games was unethical, and it forced them out of their home even if it was barely a home.
Okay, so number 4, Coca-Cola's mission statement. And that statement reads, "Our roadmap starts with our mission, which is enduring. It declares our purpose as a company and serves as the standard against which we weigh our actions and decisions." And their 3 main focus points would be to refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness, and to create value and make a difference, all of which they can do in Rio. So some of their core values, these are a few of them, but they are not limited to these core values. The first one being leadership, or the courage to shape a better future. Collaboration, which would be to leverage collective genius. Integrity, which is to be real. Accountability, if it is to be, it's up to me. Passion, which is committed in both heart and in mind. Diversity, as inclusive as their brands are. And quality, which is what they do well. And a quote from Coke says, "Our values serve as a compass for our actions and describe how we behave in the world." So utilitarianism was the motivation behind Coca-Cola's ad campaign. One of their ads was #That'sGold. This was their most dominant ad. It featured 79 athletes from 23 countries and the gold moments outside of the Olympics. And another was Taste the Feeling, which was everyday moments that led to winning gold in people's lives, whether that be in the actual Olympics or in their daily lives. And that appeals to everyday people and moments that everyone goes through, including the athletes. So our question was, did Coca-Cola follow their utilitarian mission when it came to sponsoring the Olympic Games? And they were very positive in getting everyone involved with the Olympics, and that sense of accountability and being a part of something was very important, even though they might not have had a huge purpose in life. And they really brought communities together and made them special in Rio and around the world. And they showed diversity in both of their ads. And again, Nats Gold was their most dominant one that they used.
We decided to do a grading system for all the questions presented in the slides on the scale from 1 to 5. The first and last questions were ethical, and the second and third ones we said were unethical.
In conclusion, we have come to decide that Coca-Cola should sponsor the 2016 Rio Olympics. We just knew that they would refresh the world and give Brazil great meaning again. Thank you for watching our presentation. My group and I had a blast doing it. It was fun working with these unique individuals, and see y'all soon.